Stick around and I'm going to show you how to make this 3D printed shelf in Fusion 360. Let's go. Okay, here we are at the computer. There's many ways to do this, but this is just kind of my way. It's pretty straightforward and easy. There are other ways, but they can kind of be a little more complicated. So first thing you do is you start a sketch. I draw mine. I'm going to draw the top of the shelf first. So I draw mine on this top plane. And I also draw symmetrically. So I usually put in a center axis. And then I'm going to put in some basic dimensions. I know that I want my shelf to be about 9 inches wide and about 3 inches. So because you're working in halves, one side's going to be 4.5, and so will the other side. And we can just mirror that along that axis that I mentioned. Okay, so now we know this total dimension is going to be 9 inches. I also know that I want it to be off the wall about 3 inches, so about a 3-inch depth. The way I do it is I pretty much just draw the basic shape that I want. And find the highest or the deepest part of the shelf, which would be here. And then I would just measure that and put in that dimension. Then you can drag the rest of the shapes to make it look how you want it to look. There's really no right or wrong way about doing this, how you do this. This is sort of an aesthetic kind of process. Just go with what you like, what it looks good, and if you need to change it, you can change it later. Okay, so now that we have our basic shape, we're going to extrude this 50 thousandths in the negative direction. And then hit OK. Okay, so now we have the top of our shelf. The next thing we want to do is start to create those slanted geometrical shapes. So how I go about this, again, you start another sketch, but this time on the bottom. And ideally, you want to start at the corner and go pretty far out. Don't worry, this is all going to get removed later. Again, there's no right or wrong way about this. You just want it to be a decent size from the shelf, as you can see. Just something like this. If you need measurements here, here's the measurements I'm using. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to extrude that in the negative direction again. So we're going to go down. When you extrude, make sure to include this profile of the shelf. So you can see it's starting to have the geometric shape. Now, we're going to go a distance of, let's try a 1/2 inch and see how that looks. Okay, so it's pretty short, but we'll try that. Try extrude a 1/2 inch, but we also want to include a taper angle of negative 20 degrees. So as you can see, it's starting to create that angle. Okay, so then hit OK. We're going to do it again. We're going to pick extrude. We're going to pick this whole surface, and we'll extrude it down. Let's try 0.75. And then we're going to increase the taper angle to -40 and then hit OK. As you can see, it's taking shape. Again, we're going to extrude the surface down. Let's try 1 inch this time, and a taper angle of -55. Okay. So it looks pretty good. It's getting there. I want another layer, because what you want is this back surface to line up with this point here. In other words, when you extrude this down, you're not left with a flat surface here. But as you can see, this is how we're going to end up with the shelf, the shape of the shelf. So once more, we'll extrude this down, and we'll go, let's just go 1 inch, and another taper angle. Let's look at it from the left. Let's do like a taper angle of -45. Okay, I think that's probably going to look good. Okay, I think I like that. Next, you would take the extrusion feature, pick this surface, and drag it through until all of that is gone. So this large area is gone. When you hit OK, what you're left with is the basic shape of the shelf. And it's starting to look pretty good. The only problem right now is that we don't have the French cleat. And that's kind of the key feature to this. So what we're going to do, we're going to start another sketch, but this time on the middle plane of the left. So this axis here. And you pretty much can just draw this shape. Okay, this is a construction line, and it is a 1/2 inch. The distance from here to here is 0.35. This angle is 45 degrees. This line and this line are parallel. This distance here is 0.85. We're also going to draw a couple more lines that go down like this. This distance is 0.04. This distance is 0.125. And this is the basic outline of the French cleat and the catch. So it's going to have the centerpiece, and then it's going to catch on top. That'll make sense in a minute. So first thing I do is I do the cavity for the French cleat. So we're going to pick this. You have to hide the body, so you're going to pick all of it. And then bring the body back, select symmetrical, and then once you start dragging it, you're going to see it creates a cavity for the French cleat. So it's going to be a total of 6 inches. This represents 1/2 of the extrusion. So I'm going to put in a 6 inch. So now we do the inside part. So you can't see the sketch, so we'll bring it back, which is this one. And we're going to create another extrusion that's symmetric, that goes across, but you have to make sure you click this and select new body. And so we know this is 3 inches, and I'm going to give us a 1/4 inch total. So 1/8 inch on each side. And we'll do a 1/4 inch. We'll do a 1/2 inch. So there's a little bit of play. So we'll do 2.75. Okay, and then we can hide the sketch. Now you can see there's our French cleat that doesn't have the holes for the screw yet, and we have our shelf. Okay, so now let's put the screw holes in there. So what I'm going to do is hide the shelf, and then I'm left with this. I'm going to start a sketch, but you want to make sure you're selecting the opposite side of this. So I'm going to hide this part, rotate it, and I'm going to select this side to start a sketch on. Okay, so again, I like to work with symmetrical. So this is going to be my construction line for mirroring. I need a line for dimensioning the circle. That's construction. I'm going to start a hole here. And we're going to do our countersink. So there's 2 holes. You'll see how that works if you don't understand. The center hole for the screws that I use, which are drywall, number 8 drywall screws, it's 0.21. And the outer diameter of the head of the screw is 0.35. The next thing you want the distance, so it's going to be from here to here. I already know it's 0.22. So dimension that. And then from the center to the circle, it's going to be 1.75. Okay, now that this is fully defined, we're going to mirror it to the other side along that axis plane that we put in. Hit OK. And then we're going to extrude the through holes to the back side of the print part. Hit OK. And we're going to drop our countersink negative 0.165. And we hide our sketch. There we go. So we have a place for the screws. You could leave it at that point, but I like to put in a 2 distance chamfer here and here. So the first one goes up and the other one goes in. This is 0.07, 70 thousandths. And this upper one is going to go up 0.125, an eighth of an inch. And you see that we selected both corners, so they're both done. Okay, and then, so if we bring back the shelf, you could be done at this point. But for the ease of 3D printing, I like to do a couple extra things. So I'll add a chamfer to this at 40 thousandths, 0.04. 30 thousandths, 0.03. And I bring back the shelf and I do the same thing to that lip there. So 0.03. Okay, once we have that, I also add, if you all know the term elephant footing from 3D printing, this is going to be the orientation of the part when it prints. The bottom surface is the top of the part. So that's going to be what's contacting the bed. Because of that, you can get an elephant foot. It squishes out. So I add a chamfer to all my parts at 20 thousandths. And that pretty much eliminates any elephant foot that I get from 3D printing. So because I did it on there, I'm also going to do it on here. The orientation for the print on this is going to be like this. That's going to be the bottom. So I'm going to add a 20 thousandths chamfer to that as well. And hit OK. So you can see it actually added it to the screw holes as well. Okay, so all the parts are done. The next step is 3D printing. The next step is slicing it, which I'll show you. Fusion 360 has the ability to send this as an STL right to your slicer. I use Prusa Slicer, so I go into Utilities, click Make, and then I click Bodies. So that's going to select both the shelf and the French cleat. I already have this set up where my application is Prusa Slicer. You would basically find the EXE for whatever slicer you use, but I have Prusa Slicer, so when I hit OK, it's going to start Prusa Slicer. Okay, now that it opened with the part, you're going to see that it's the same. The two parts are treated as one, and that's because we sent it all at the same time from Fusion 360. So we're going to select the part, right click on it, split into objects. So now it's two different parts, and we need to reorientate these. So this part, the print orientation is going to be this part down. And if you remember, this part's orientation is going to be this way. Okay, so now we can arrange our parts and slice. Okay, there's our slice part. So you can see that's about a 5-hour print. I'm going to send that to the Prusa, and I'm going to set up a time lapse so you get to see that. And I'll show you when it's done. Okay, there you go. Here's the 3D printed shelf and the French cleat. So as you can see, you would just mount this to the wall and it just hangs on it just like that. Pretty simple. These are the screws I use. They're drywall screws. Link in the description below. I think they're number 8 1.25" screws. So they would just go in there, and there's enough clearance, and it would just hang on the wall, just like that. Okay. What's also neat is if you need a hanger for something specific. So if you need a hanger for your drill, or a set of screwdrivers, or maybe a tripod or your camera, you could make a holder for it and just attach it right to the French cleat. So it's interchangeable with other things. Look for a future video on that. Pretty neat, huh? Okay. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you're interested in these parts, look in the description below for links for the free files to 3D print. Otherwise, there's a link for Etsy if you want to purchase a set of these. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. It shouldn't be too painful. Get in there, practice around with Fusion 360. It's pretty easy once you start using it. And you can do all sorts of things. Like I said, shelves, hangers, you can make a sign. It's pretty neat, pretty simple. Okay, I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.